What's up, and welcome to episode 5 of How to Make a Knife. I'm Mike with Alpha Blade and Forge.
Steve, Cutter Fabrications. What's up, dude? How you been, man? Yeah,
I've been
better
I've been
now. I bet
good.
that you got that.
Yeah, much needed, man. Very thirsty today. It's been a very busy week for me, and I know that last
In a
week we
good
were talking
way.
about the. Yeah, anything busy is technically good in my eyes, you know. So
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
I'll deal with it. But I guess one thing I'm not been busy with is getting ready for this knife show. I'm running around doing everything else. I got one knife done this week, which is not on par for where I want to be at the end of this. So,
Yeah, yeah.
how about you? You got any work done?
Um, I got a couple of fillet knives ready to go. Two fillet knives and two 1095 carbon knives that I'm gonna put a hamon on.
Nice.
And yeah, I'm making moves towards. I'm gonna enter into this competition, so I'm gonna do something for that.
Awesome.
Kind of made a decision on that, and I mean, I'm going big. I said I was competitive, dude, so I'm going big. Or if I might fail, I might come with nothing, but I'm going for it. So
Oh, hell yeah.
I'll give
You
I'll
got
give you a guess, dude.
it. I'm gonna say wait, you're not doing a sword, are you, right? I know that was what you were mentioning. Are you doing a sword? Oh no, are you doing a sword, man?
I'll give you one guess, dude.
Oh
That's
my
all you get. That's all you get.
Oh man.
Guess
Right.
with that image right there.
I
What
don't
did
even
you
know. That
see?
looked like a bus light. What do you got there?
All right, I'll show you one. I'll show you out of the box one more
All
time.
right, all right, all right. What the yo? Okay. All right. So you son of a bitch. I love it.
What do,
That's
what do you think
amazing.
that is, dude?
I mean, that looks like the guard to a samurai sword. That's what it looked like to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love it. I love it.
Yes,
Good,
sir,
man.
dude. Yes, sir.
Damn. That's
Yeah, I actually knew I was doing this last week, dude. I was gonna try to leave it as a surprise, but it's just like whatever. If I fail, I fail. Who cares at this point? But yeah, bro, I'm going for it. I bought this guard, which is called a Suba with a C with a T.
Tsuba.
Yeah, Tsuba, I believe it's pronounced. Dude, if any sword makers ever watch this, if I'm pronouncing this shit wrong, I'm fucking sorry. I just started researching all this shit, but I'm gonna try, dude. I'm gonna try to make it as like authentically as possible with the wrapping and all that stuff. I'm going for it. Like I'm gonna go for an authentic as I possibly can. I'm gonna do bamboo pegs in it, and the tang and everything. I found a website in Texas that I was able to buy the spacers for it and like the little brass piece that I need. I just might not be able to have the sheath for it done by then. But I'm if I have the sword, that's cool enough for me. I'll fucking figure out a way to transport it without ripping up my back seat.
Yeah, some bubble
But I'm not
wrap or
going super big
towels.
either. I'm not going
Okay.
so large. I'm building a katana still, but it's technically called a dude. I did so much fucking research on all this shit
All right, hit me.
because I'm
Tell me
trying to
about it.
keep it authentic, So I'm
Yeah.
technically building what's called a ko katana, which is a smaller version of a full size katana. Which I also doing some research found out that most samurai preferred that with a wakizashi, which is a smaller sword, a little bit smaller of a sword, as a backup as well. So I'm gonna try to make both of them. I think I'm
Wow.
gonna try to make a matching set, and if I can get a handle on both of them and get them wrapped up, or at least a handle on one of them and get it wrapped up nicely, um, I think that'd be
That's
cool.
that's awesome. And I mean, I know you said you didn't want to say it in case of failure, but whether this comes out
Yeah,
perfect or there's
it's gonna
issues,
happen one day or another.
yeah, learning lessons, and it's something that you could bring back to here and say, hey, this is something I learned not to do. Or do you know what steel type
Exactly.
you're
Yeah,
doing?
I'm doing 1095, bro, all day, every
Nice.
day.
Oh yeah. Okay,
I'm gonna,
now for
like I
me
said, I'm trying to keep
personally,
it authentic, and like they say, like the Japanese sword makers like to use 1095, um, and I'm gonna put the hamon in it, and it's like, you know what, like a lot of what I kind of do with my knives is surrounded by that Japanese style anyway, so I kind of thought the samurai sword was a good fit.
yeah, awesome, dude.
I'm excited
Listen, good
for it. I'm
luck with
excited
it.
to give it the try. I mean, obviously all this other shit comes first, but while I have that downtime when I'm hardening some knives and stuff like that, I'm gonna throw that fucking 1095 in the forge and put a nice curve into it. I'm gonna make a nice sweeping samurai sword and a wakazashi. I don't fucking know, dude. There's so many, dude. There's so many of these names, man. Like you know how it goes. Like I'm sure you've read some of this stuff, but
Yeah, man.
they got a
Listen,
name for every grind. You know, every little
yeah,
line, every little piece of it.
yeah, which is hard because you can only learn what you're learning. And when there's this glossary of, things you need to know just to sound intelligent talking about knives, it puts you in a predicament where it's like you never know the right term. And also,
Yeah, you
there's
could sound
no
like an
true
idiot real quick, and you're like,
yeah.
fuck.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. I don't. Where's the ricasso? I don't. Do I even have a ricasso on this knife? I don't know. So
Yeah,
it's hard. And there's other terms like in the electrical field. Every tool has four different names, and if you
yep.
could be calling it that same name for years, you go on a new job, and suddenly people are like, "The fuck are you talking about?" Kindorf. It's Versabar, and then no, it's Strut. So it is what it is, but we'll learn it as we get there, which actually comes to our topic today of the anatomy of a knife. What are all these terms when we're saying shit? What are we talking about? It's a
Yeah, I
lot. I
mean, it is a lot. I mean, it's really a lot to learn, and kind of one of the reasons why I wasn't going to be able to hold in the fact that I'm making this sword is a lot of this terminology comes from uh, Japanese knife making, Japanese sword making. All the
Oh,
hamons that I do, that is a old samurai sword making technique. Um, it's technically not a true samurai sword without a real hamon in it. Um, it's uh, almost everything that the Western knife making world adopted into their own is from Japanese culture. Most of it,
hmm, hmm.
a good part of it. Even like the forge welding and stuff like that. Forge welding the bolsters, people do that, or they do the integral bolsters, which is forging it out from stock. I mean, you could still do integral bolsters by forge welding them on, which I do plan on trying to do that pretty soon too.
Hmm.
But yeah, that's adopted from basically Sanmai, and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
we're getting ahead of ourselves a little bit here. So let's start like
All
let's
right.
get a little let's back it up and let's basically just explain front to back or back to front, however you want to start. Maybe you want to show off the back or the front. I'll show off the other side, whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's show a couple parts of a knife.
Okay.
Keep it simple, and we'll
So here's my when I'm talking to someone who doesn't know much about knives. So here we have a knife. I like to say that this is the blade. So this whole thing here is the blade. I'm not breaking it down into what parts of the blade. You have the handle, and for the most part, that's what the knife is. There can be a guard here. That's the holy trinity of a knife. Is you have the blade area, you have the handle, and then there could be a guard or something to protect from your hand going up to the blade. So typically, that's as far as I'll go with terminology.
yeah. I
Now,
try to keep it as simple as I can when I'm talking to people, but some people like to pry and get into you like, oh, what's this part though? Like, what is this? What is that? What? But at the same
definitely.
time, too, some people who are just listening just might not know. And also, we got to remember when we're explaining this stuff, let's go into detail a little bit too, because some people might not be watching, you know?
For sure. So, okay. So now that we guessed, there's the blade side, there's the handle side, maybe there's a guard in the middle. I'm going to start with the handle side. Let me take the handle, and then you can kind of take the whole metal, blade area. But for handles, typically every knife has a tang. The tang is the piece of metal that goes into the handle or sandwiched in between the handle. Now, there's a full tang, which is what this knife is here in my hand. A full tang means that piece of metal goes fully through the handle. So from start to finish, there is a full piece of metal in there. It is exposed. You can see it. And then you put handle scales onto it. This is a stabilized wood that I have as the scales. And then there are pins or rods. I use brass because they're soft and easy to grind down with the handle scales, the wood or micarta or whatever it is. And that's what I like. I like a full tang. I like the weight it gives a knife. I like the fact that the steel is going all the way through. I know it really doesn't happen, especially if you make it right. But my idea with a hidden tang where it's not all the way through is that it could pop out, that it can, the wood can break. It doesn't have steel reinforcing it all the way through. So I like the full tang. The other option is the hidden tang, which is, from my understanding, more traditional, lighter.
It's the traditional Japanese way, the hidden tang. Yeah.
Where that steel, instead of going all the way through,
would be the.
Go ahead. Yep. So you do it very well. The hidden tang is a smaller piece of steel that goes inserted snugly into the handle. You can still put a pin through it. A lot of people do not. Having it wedged in there and epoxied is a great way to get that handle in tight.
Whether or not you put a pin in it is really, personal preference. Some people like that mechanical connection going through there. With the G-Flex epoxy, man, the tensile strength on that shit is so strong that I'm not worried about it. I typically don't put a mechanical connection in there, but
yeah,
I do like it. It does make for a sleek, lighter knife. Gives it it's a little more weight forward for that front chopping. And
I don't put a pin in any of mine when I do a hidden tang. I do them, and I had done a Scandi grind.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Bush knife, and we'll get into
the grinds later. So yeah.
But I did a hidden tang, and I was just beating it into everything I can, trying to test out this grind, and not even the slightest wiggle chance of breaking. So you don't need a pin. That is for sure.
Yeah. No, I tested it out. I made a whole batch in the very beginning. I made a run of like 4 knives. I made a little set. It was cool, and I just decided to beat the crap out of them. And I wound up keeping one. I kept the paring knife out of it. That's the only one that stayed in the kitchen. So, nice. But I beat the crap out of the other ones, and it took me a while to really destroy them.
Yeah.
So, dude, I've been testing knives for a while. I'm pretty pleased with everything. I think I made a post yesterday or the other day. I just finished testing up the CPM MagnaCut stuff that I've been using, and dude, it was awesome. I broke it at the end too. I was looking on the inside through the grain structure, beautiful. It looked great.
Yeah, awesome.
We'll get into what that means later too.
Yeah, but
keep getting ahead of ourselves, but that happens.
Yeah. So the handles is basic. That's pretty much it. You have a hidden or you have a full. Typically, there's a wood or some sort of material that either goes fully around it or sandwiched onto it, and some pins. As we move up to it, what do we got there? You give me some terms as we're moving up the blade, up the knife.
As you're moving up, I know there's 2 different ways people describe a choil, or I know there's a finger choil and a regular choil. So I believe, obviously, this is the finger choil because that's where your finger goes, and I believe that little notch is the choil, but also right past that is the ricasso, that unsharpened piece of the blade that you see there. And it's just like that's where it gets confusing. There's so many of these stupid little terms that really are almost the same thing, and they're right around in the same spot. But one of them means where it's unground and not or unsharpened. One part means where the blade stops, and then where you put your finger. It's crazy. There's so many different things when you're trying to look all this stuff up by yourself, and you're like, I don't know what that is. I don't know what that is. But
Right. Which let's stick on that. Actually, right there is the choil, the ricasso, and then the finger choil. Because that is, in most terms, if you're talking about a fixed everyday carry or something, you have those three aspects. But
yeah.
you don't need two out of the three technically. That choil, the little choil that holds the edge. So this knife right here that I'm holding right here has no choil and technically no ricasso because the blade goes right down. Now this isn't sharpened, but there is.
Well, that
Go ahead,
part
hit me.
of like
Would this be
where your finger is right there is technically would be the finger choil, I would assume.
right finger choil here, but then no ricasso and no choil to go from ricasso to blade, right?
Well, just that unsharpened part just past your finger would
This right here.
be the ricasso, like
Okay, so
that
that
part of your blade. So like right past the heel here. So
yeah,
so all that stuff too is also the heel of the knife.
yes,
Crazy,
yes.
right? So you got the choil, the finger choil, and the ricasso. They're all inside of the heel of the knife.
Yeah.
And so this is the heel, but that unsharpened part of your, so like up here on your blade, that would technically be the ricasso, like right past your finger.
Okay, so that makes sense. So this divot here that I have here is the choil, the finger choil, and then as I roll my finger up before I get to the blade, that is the ricasso. Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. Uh,
Yeah, I again, I for a lot of my knives in the early session, I didn't put any ricasso or my blade would always go down. And then recently I realized that there are the smaller blades where you want to make sure that that blade doesn't come all the way down to the bottom because if your finger slips up there, you want some safety to where you don't immediately hit blade.
yeah.
So
I mean, some people don't mind having that little break in the blade and stuff. I like having it there because, like I said, I'm trying to use my knives to zip up a rib cage and, not
yeah,
cut my finger off in the process, you know.
yeah, yeah, because you have to really stab that sternum, and if you stab
Eh,
that sternum
I
and you
mean,
slip,
if you get a good grip and you do a nice two-handed grip, I get right under the sternum and I can kind of unzip it pretty damn nicely with one of my knives. And
I stab the
the
shit out of
reason
it.
why the reason why the reason why I started making them a little bit smaller too is because I like to I stick my hand all the way up in there and then I slide my knife in past that. I stick my hand all the way up in there, grab the esophagus, and then cut the
Yeah,
esophagus and pull everything out
yeah.
like that. And having a big knife doing that is sucks. I stab myself, try not to do
Yeah,
that,
yeah, my
especially with my
last
hands inside of a bloody body
yeah,
cavity.
yeah, my very last the buck that I just hit, that was my first time I ever didn't break the sternum, and I reached up in there and I did the esophagus, just blindly reaching in there and doing it. Um, but I have cut myself pretty hard in the cavity, just filling my
Yeah,
blood into the
it's
blood.
very
We're just
easy.
mixing blood. It's no good.
It's very easy to do, and you got a
Yeah,
bunch of adrenaline running, and you do that with a sharp knife. You don't even know until you go wash your hands and you're like, oh, that stings a little bit. What the fuck? So yeah,
yeah,
you got to be careful. That's why for some reason, a lot of people like these big buck knife style blades. Some of these hunters, um, but I don't. I like these smaller style. This is more
yeah,
of a Skinner type, but something like that
yeah.
is
I
perfect. I
agree.
mean, to cut through to get to the guts, I'm going that deep, and then I got to cut through an esophagus like that, and everything
Yeah,
comes out.
yeah. I mean, listen, 3 inches is more enough. You know, that's what I keep telling everybody. You only need 3 inches,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
That's it. Anything further than 3 inches is unnecessary. That's what I say. But um, so my biggest thing that I've been trying to figure out with this bar, while we're staying near the heel of the blade before we start talking up about the edges and all that, is the
Mhm.
plunge line. I hear this word plunge line all the time, and I'm never quite aware of what that is. Now, my understanding of the plunge line is so you start off with an even flat piece of steel, and the plunge line is when you grind your bevel to bring the angle down towards the edge. The plunge line is where that bevel meets the flat area of a blade. So right where the
Yeah.
ricasso would be kind of like the ricasso is the shore where the bevel is the ocean, and they meet there, and there's that joint. Am I correct with that?
Yeah, so I'm just trying to see here if I have.
Because I guess so. If for anyone who has the video, where my unground area meets my ground shiny area, that would be my plunge line, is my understanding. So there they are.
So the
That's my plunge
plunge
line.
line
There we go.
would be that line
Yeah.
there. So when I start
Yeah.
grinding that, this would be where I plunge my knife into the grinder to get that sharp line. So I'll do that. We'll go into that another day. We'll go into how I do that, but that's the line.
Yeah.
It's hard to really describe
Yeah.
for our listeners, people who aren't watching, but it's basically just the line towards the heel of the blade, uh, like you said, just past the ricasso. That
Yeah.
line
Yeah.
just past the ricasso where you can see a little definition in the blade. That's all the
Yeah.
plunge line is.
Yeah.
It's a grind line.
Where the ricasso meets bevel. That's it. That's I guess so. And it's beautiful because I love, for me personally, most of my knives, it's as basic and as uncomplicated as I can get. Again, I try to keep
Me
my
too. I try
prices down.
to, especially when I'm
Yeah.
explaining to people, man. I just try to be like, yeah, yep, this. I don't try to go into ricassos and fucking choils and all that shit.
Yeah.
Nobody needs to know about that. Nobody cares about that. Nobody even cares about the angles half the time. You know what I mean? Unless maybe it's like a professional chef.
Yeah. Yeah. And and as a knife maker, I personally don't care about these terms so much, like I
Yeah.
get,
I mean,
because
I know
they're
they're there.
optional. Yeah, they're optional parts. You can make a knife, a million different ways. So at the end of the day, it's good to know, and that's why we're doing this podcast
Exactly. Because we
right
do
here.
use
But
some of these terms. We do use some of these
yeah,
terms. And we'll get into more of these terms, more of like the common terms a little bit later too. But for now, we're just talking about the anatomy of a knife that has some terms in it that we've probably thrown out there or we might throw out there in the future. So that's all we're trying to do is just cover our bases.
yeah. Um, Now, when someone says the spine of a blade for you, what does the spine actually mean to you?
The spine to me is everything directly opposite of the edge.
Yes. Okay.
Does that make sense?
Mhm.
So for here, like if this everything here up is the edge, everything straight above that is the spine.
Yeah. And for the people who can't see it, if you were to go cut a knife with an edge, but then flip it 180 degrees, that back area that's dull is the
The
spine.
spine is what you're looking at while you're cutting.
Yeah.
The unsharpened edge, completely opposite of the edge.
Yeah.
That's what you're
Now
looking at the whole time.
a dagger wouldn't have a
Ooh,
spine, right?
a
Because it's
dagger.
edge and edge, right?
Dagger. Uh, to be honest, I'm not exactly sure if you make a dagger what that ridge in the middle is called. That might have a name. It probably does. I have not made a
Yeah.
dagger yet, so I don't even know what that name is. But we could probably Google it real quick.
I'll tell you what. Yeah, you keep on going. Let me see if I can find that, but because it
Yeah,
has to
look
have
up.
a name.
Yeah, just look up what the ridge on the dagger is. So yeah, the spine of the blade goes all the way to the point. all the way to the point to the edge.
Yep.
And some knives even have what's called a bolster on them. I was mentioning that before. And what a bolster is, it's basically it's a metal part of the knife handle, almost an extended metal part of the knife handle, and it's kind of hard to describe for the non-listeners, but you can do it. You can pin those on, and you can also do them what's called an integral bolster, which is the more common way to do it, which is either forge welding a thicker part of the blade back past the heel, closer to the handle, and that becomes part of the handle and kind of almost acts too as a little bit of a counterweight and weights the knife in your hands a little bit better.
Yeah,
for that hidden tang. Those are great for hidden tang style blades.
Yeah, a bolster, in my opinion, is kind of like the shoulders of the handle. So as you're working your way up to the handle, right before you hit blade where it gets thin, the bolster is that area that kind of transitions from the handle up. Now,
yep.
My understanding, because I've always seen and everyone will hear the term integral, bolster, which means, like you had said, it's forged in. So when you're forging the blade, you have this fat piece of steel that starts the handle. Now, for a blade, again, like this one, this top area of the handle would be the bolster. But because it's not steel, is it still a bolster? Does this blade not have a bolster because it doesn't have it in that scenario?
I to my understanding of what a bolster is that
mine does not have
wouldn't
one,
be
right?
considered one. Now I could be wrong, dude. There's a lot of silly little definitions and to these terms, but to my understanding of the definition, I don't think that.
Right. That's just two handle scales on a flat piece of steel. There's no bolster. Yeah. So, okay. And also, just to fill in with the dagger, the terminology that I'm seeing here is it's called a central edge, is that middle area that runs down a dagger. Central edge. Oh, okay. No, the other one says fuller, but we'll get into what a fuller is. So, yeah, central edge is just the dagger.
Fuller's different. But well, while we're talking about it, might as well just explain what a fuller is.
Yeah. Okay, so my best explanation of the fuller is when you see the old school Rambo K-bar military knife, there's the edge and then there's the bevel. So let's go into the bevel. The bevel is actually the angle that brings you to the edge. So that whole slide that goes to the edge is the bevel. So in a K-bar, and now picture it, Rambo's knife, you have the edge, you have the bevel that comes up, and then there's the flat area right before the spine. The fuller is the little indentation or the trough that gets carved out going straight up it. And it normally reminds me of like a little trough or like, a little indent or a little dugout or, just something that's dug into the blade in order to remove weight from it.
Yep. Just a groove. And it's not just for weight. It's actually, going back to Japanese, it's a blood groove. So when stabbing something, you'll get on a flat blade, you'll get kind of a suction trying to pull it back, and this was put into some of the samurai swords, some of the katanas, and some of the wakizashis. They were mainly slashing swords, but they could, especially the wakizashi it was a close quarters thing, so it could be used for stabbing. When you have something big like that, you want the return to be quick. So if without that blood groove is a lot of suction, there could be suction. With the blood groove, it prevents any kind of suction.
Okay. That's interesting. I didn't know it actually had a purpose. That makes sense. Blood groove is a badass metal name for a fuller. I like that. But all right, yeah. And now, have you ever put a fuller into a blade before?
I haven't done any fullers yet. No.
Okay. Ooh, okay. So let me ask you: would an S grind technically be a fuller? See, this is again everything we're talking about is proving that this is all
That's
gray
tough.
area.
No, I would say
But
I would go with no on that one.
okay,
Just based off that's just a type of grind. Um, it's just a type of concave grind,
okay, okay.
type of hollow grind or concave grind. But we'll get into grinds later.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay. So yeah, at the end of the day, um, the bevel is the term I use the most, and I actually have a question for you. So I have two different knives here. For this knife here, this combat knife, you could see I have the bevel and it goes halfway up. After the bevel goes up, it hits this flat area that I had peened and left blackened. What is this area called? Is that just like the face of the blade? What would you call this? Because I didn't find that in the terms. So what would
That
that
I
be?
don't know.
Right? I've always called it the face of the blade, the flat face of the blade, but
I'm not sure. Yeah,
yeah, I know. But the bevel's important.
that
Now,
that's just because what you're doing. Because that would be, I guess, called let me look here. That would be a compound grind, right? This would be a compound grind, and then the other knife that you have, the one that you just showed me, pull that one back up.
right here.
That one's like a full flat grind, so how you have
Yeah,
it ground all the way to the spine.
all the way to the spine. Yeah, which is how I've been handling. I prefer to do the full flat grind all the way up
Yeah,
because
you've been
it
doing those a
allows
lot.
me.
Yeah.
Yeah, it allows me to just have a nice even grind path. Again, I'm trying not to do any hand sanding, so if I can get it all evenly ground out, I think personally it's nice. Now, honestly, in my opinion, I think I need to start doing S grinds because if I have a flat surface, a flat bevel going all the way up, the potatoes, everything will stick a little bit more than if I had the bevel going up halfway because halfway through the cut, there will be that separation. Um,
I'm
so,
also looking it up about the blood groove. That's why I'm not paying attention
mm.
to you, but
Oh
I
yeah, no,
also could
we
be
got
wrong
we got
about
to do
that. Now that
research.
I'm gonna have to look into that a little bit more because I might be completely wrong and you might be more right than I am.
Listen,
But
there is a million purposes for everything, and that again, this is where we're saying is all of these terms are. This is a gray area. People have terms. People have reasons for doing it, and there is no absolute correct answer for it all. So,
no,
like, okay, a great example of I don't know what the fuck it's in it for. So my big cleaver here. This is a big
that's to
fat
fucking
cleaver.
hang it on the wall, bro.
Okay, so that was my understanding. Is you put this hole in here because I wasn't even going to put it, and Dana's like, no, you got to put the hole. So I just want to say I did a 7/8 hole because I'm an electrician, and this is our standard size for all connectors. So 7/8 hole for all you electricians out there. But so when I did some research to find out, like, do I really need it? Apparently, you can put a piece of metal or wood in there, some sort of dowel or rod to help force to chop.
Interesting.
But
That makes
now
sense, I guess. Yeah.
it makes sense, but at the same time, it really wasn't much information on it. And I feel like that's just something that people are saying. Maybe some people use it, but the real use of
Yeah.
it.
It's the
So
thing. You really
again,
got to research the history of this stuff too, like
right.
instead of just listening to what somebody says.
And sometimes it doesn't matter. Sometimes, like, yeah, shove that dowel in there and use it. And other times,
Yeah,
use it
who
to hang up.
cares? Hang it from
Sometimes,
the fucking wall if you want. Use the dowel. Yeah, do whatever
yeah,
you want with
make
that
a
hole.
necklace out of that, right? That
Yeah, wear it from your
just
fucking
hanging
neck.
from
I
my
don't give a
neck.
fuck, dude.
Yeah, but
Do you?
uh, yeah, put them holes in it, man.
It's your world, bro. I'm just living in it.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of it, man. Because again, all these terms, but You can do whatever you want. Actually, so let me just go back to this little combat knife here. I did not put a choil in between the blade to the ricasso. There is no little choil. It just goes. Now, again, this is not sharpened. I don't sharpen my knives until I'm ready to do something with them. It's easier. I got kids running around. So,
oh yeah,
what's up?
yeah. No, it's we'll go into it at another time.
Okay.
That might have a choil on it, according to definition. Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Because when I was doing my folders in the little book, it was like, okay, now that your blade is done, grind in your little choil. And I was like, all right, I will, but I typically
grind
don't.
it in when it's done.
Yeah. It was all done, but I don't know, man. Choils.
I did my choils first. I thought that, whatever, dude, whatever. Whatever floats your boat. So you put your choils in.
You put in a choil before you bevel it out and everything.
Yeah, that because I don't put a fucking jig on there when I bevel. I just do it by eye. So with that little choil there, it kind of tells me where to start each time. You know what I'm saying?
Nice. Okay. Yeah. No, that makes sense.
Yeah. So I put that in first, and then I grind it down to an edge that way. And I don't know. Seems to work for me.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I like I said, I typically don't put in the choil, and what I'll do is when I'm done putting an edge in, I'll just chop that choil in there after the fact. I mean, if I need it, but
how about enough about choils and heels and
yeah.
Forget the choils. I'm sorry to saying it. All right. What were you saying? What do you got? You got a question?
I was gonna say, so my favorite part of a knife that actually isn't really that I incorporate in all my knives now for the most part, if it allows it, is a thumb groove, I guess, or a thumb placement.
Thumb grooves. Yeah, I try to do that now too, always.
Yeah, I call it the thumb groove. I know you've been doing where you did the file work for it. So in this knife here, this is one of my, little hunting knives or everyday carries. And right here is a nice little area where your thumb just rests. And it stops it from sliding up. It gives it a reason. It allows you to hold it. And I love it. I put it on as many knives as I can. My fillet knives have it. My Stallion kitchen knife has it. My Clydesdales don't. But, I mean, I'm throwing it in everything I can. Feels good when you're holding it. But I don't know if that's actually the name. Let's see. I know I had this written down here. So it is called a thumb ramp, says the internet.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I put in thumb grooves. I would call what I put in. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I only put thumb grooves and shit in my everyday carry, my outdoors knives and stuff like that. In my boning knife, I didn't put anything for the thumb in the back. It's just flat.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we talked that like a lot of times you don't grip a kitchen knife like you do that. Like I'm holding like this where there would be a thumb groove. You don't do that. It's like you had said, a drumstick more than anything, where it's between your thumb and pointer finger.
Now boning. Now my knife's cutting skills aren't fantastic. So a boning knife, I don't know. So you might be holding a boning knife kind of more like that,
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't know. Who knows? Who do I know? I'm not a fucking butcher, but I'd like to get.
I posted a video on my Instagram of me cutting up a bunch of vegetables to make a venison cheesesteak. And I only got 2 comments on it. And one of them was, geez, Mike, I love the way you hold your knife. Cause like I was holding it like a Neanderthal. I was just like, I had it gripped and I was just like chopping into the peppers. Like no finesse.
Smashing that thing down on the cutting board.
Yeah. So, I can handle a machete, but when it comes to culinary,
probably using that fucking butcher knife too, aren't you?
Yeah.
That necklace you got.
One of the first knives I ever made for myself was a cleaver style, and it's so unnecessary and shaped like a Dark Souls weapon. And I use that for all of my cooking for the most part. If I'm trying to post a video where I have to use another knife, but like if I'm cooking for myself, I'm taking this massive knife. I use it as a pizza cutter. I use it as everything. If I'm cutting garlic and herbs, that's what I'm using. And
That's
it
the
is what
one.
it is. It goes to prove that, for me personally, a thick knife, a thick blade, it doesn't matter as long as it's sharp. I
If it's fucking
love
sharp, dude,
a
it
thick
works.
blade. Yeah, yeah. So that's a preference of mine. Which, actually, we'll get into that later. Of like kind of like the influences when we're making what we're doing. But are there any other parts of the knife that you want to mention? I mean, we know the edge, we know the spine. How about the butt of the knife?
The butt.
Show me that ass. What do you got?
Basically, that would be a butt cap.
Yeah.
So anything, I mean, technically you can, but just the back of the handle is the butt. But on some hidden tang style knives, you put a little butt cap on there, or if you use an antler, you usually put a butt cap on there because nobody wants to see the inside of the antler. So you
Right.
put a little butt cap on it.
Right. Which also in the butt, you can have the pommel. Now, a
Yep,
pommel,
different
from
than a
my
butt cap.
yes, is something that is threaded on or peened on, where it's normally a weighted piece of metal to help balance. So
Mhm.
the butt is the edge of the knife, but the butt can consist of a pommel.
Well, the butt is the end of the, not the knife, the handle.
Oh, the handle. Yes, sorry. Yeah, yeah. But the butt can be a pommel, or it could just be a butt, right?
Yep, exactly.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. So I have you ever put a pommel on anything?
Nah, nope.
Me either.
I mean, I will eventually when I start making broadswords or whatever.
Yeah. When you're making something big enough to where you need to counterweight it with a pommel, yeah.
Yeah, whatever. I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
That's down the road.
Yeah.
Start with this fucking katana first, dude.
Yeah. Yeah,
Let me
that's
just
gonna
make
do
the
it.
hardest fucking sword there is to
I,
make for the first one.
I love that there's a deadline to all this too, So it's like, it can't be one of those things where it's like, I'll get to it, at the end of summer. It's
I
like, no,
gotta
no,
do
you
it
have like
now.
4 more weeks to figure it out.
Yep. But I mean, other than that, like I have this weekend, I'll probably get these hardened up. That's a good chunk, so I'll get that done this weekend, and then I'll have time to forge during the week and mess with some handles while I'm waiting for stuff to glue up and whatever. I can
Yeah.
fuck with that sword.
Yeah. I think honestly I need to, I had said last episode I want to get 12 knives done. And thinking about it, I'll probably get 6 more knives done. I think I'm only going to be able to do half. If I try to overextend and do the 12, I'm going to end up putting up some stuff that might not be fully finished. I might possibly end up damaging something. And even wasting one knife is a lot of profit that can, get just burned up because you were being impatient or in a hurry. So I'm going to calm down
Yep.
and shoot for 6 instead of 12.
Yeah, shoot. If you get 12, that's great. I mean, I'm going for whatever I can. I'm gonna do basically, a lot of weekend work and whatever I can after, the old regular job. But yeah, I mean, we'll see what I get done. I think I'm in a good spot. That's why I made the decision to shoot for getting a fucking katana done.
Yeah.
Like I said, I wasn't gonna say anything because I might not get it done, so I might be kicking myself in the ass. But at the same time, like I'm going for it. There will be a katana coming eventually. Like I have the stuff for it, so I'm gonna make one.
Yeah. Good. And now that it's out in the public, now you gotta. I love it.
Yeah, I have no choice now. Yeah, puts me on the spot.
Well, so honestly,
But I'm gonna
we
make a
pretty
sick one
much.
though.
Yeah. Oh, well, that's the thing too. Is like I'd rather not make one at all in a deadline rather than make a one that I rushed on. Like take your time. You're gonna make it beautiful.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I got the time, dude. I mean, 4 weeks sounds like a lot of time. I mean, not a lot of time when you have a regular job, but dude,
Yeah,
I'll be all right. I got it.
Yeah, get a nice long weekend. All right. So actually, completely side topic. How long do you say it takes you to make a standard knife? Day wise and then hour wise? Because I know we all try to math it out for our costs. What does it take?
Yeah, I mean, that's really tough. I think that's a conversation for another time, honestly.
All right.
I think we'll keep that.
I
Maybe
say
we'll
2 days.
keep that. Yeah, I think we keep that with the pricing episode because I mean, it really depends. I mean, I try to do, yeah, probably around 2 days, with a lot of downtime in between. But yeah, we'll go into that. I think let's stick with some of these terms. Let's move on to some of the common terms that maybe we've been talking about, like Sanmai, Hamon. Explain some of that stuff. Like, why don't you start off? You love that Sanmai, so why don't you tell us a little bit about that? Like,
all right, so Sanmai is my favorite. I mean, all right.
one of
So in
mine
terms
too.
of,
I love it.
The Sanmai is the best of both worlds between a monosteel and a Damascus. So what Sanmai actually is it's two different steel types, just like Damascus, where you have a high carbon steel such as 1084 or 1095, and then you have it's still, well, from what I do, it's still a carbon steel, but it's something that has, so I use 15N20 as my secondary steel, which has nickel in it. And it
Makes it
is,
hardenable.
so yeah, it's still hardenable, but it doesn't react the same as a high carbon. And that's what allows the two steels to react differently to the etching process. So picture a Damascus, because that's what everybody knows. Everybody knows Forge and Fire and Damascus. And there's the black swirls and then the bright, shiny steel. The black swirls are the high carbon. Carbon reacts to the etching. It makes it black. It makes it dark. And then the 15N20 kind of repels that, or it doesn't react to it. So it stays shiny and bright. And that's how you get that beautiful contour. I guess not even just color difference, but it doesn't actually etch, because if you etch a blade long enough, the carbon does actually get a divot. Like, it will eat away at it. So the 15N20 repels it. The high carbon 1095 or 1084 eats it down. Now, for someone like me who can't do Damascus because I don't have a power hammer, I don't have a press, I don't have any of that. But what I can do is sandwich the high carbon in between two plates of 15N20, and
Yep.
you weld it, you heat it up to a high enough temperature. I believe it's 2000 degrees plus is when it gets ready to get that weld. And once I
You're right
see it
around there.
glowing a
Hot.
bright yellow, hotter than you're gonna quench it.
Yeah,
And
way fucking hotter.
and you just pull it out and you pound the fuck out of it. And that sets the forge weld. And now these two separate steels are a harmonious one piece. And as you grind your bevel in, and we talked about the bevel, that's your edge, the slant that edges in, it removes the 15N20 and it allows the 1095 or the 1084 to be completely exposed as the edge, which is what you want, because that's the hardest. That's what hardens the best, is the best edge. But it allows you to see, once you etch it, this unique pattern of 15N20 to carbon, color difference, the white to the black, the edges. And I like to, as I'm doing it, hammer in these wild divots as I'm going through. That way, the line between it is something unique every time.
Yep, something different every time.
It adds so much to a blade. It is my favorite version of knives. You hear me talking about it. I could go on about this forever. I love it. I love it because it's stupid.
Do you know the history of it?
Not at all. No, hit me.
Again, going back to the Japanese stuff, Sanmai is basically like a hardenable steel was a precious metal back then. So sometimes they didn't have as much as they wanted to make what they wanted. So they would use an unhardenable steel, which was a lot easier to get, and sandwich the hardenable steel in the middle. So when they ground it down, they still had a nice, hard, sharp edge, but that outside was softer metal, softer, cheaper metal, but it still helped stabilize the blade, making the spine a little bit thicker.
That's awesome. That really goes to show that what we do in luxury just for, looks, it was set because, it was hard times. You needed to be as resourceful as possible. And that's an awesome thing.
Sanmai means 3 layers.
3 layers.
Gomai is another one that's very similar, and it means 5 layers.
Right. Now, typically, the Gomai I see always has the copper. That is so popular now, copper in the blade.
It's very popular now, yeah.
I don't like it, man. I don't like the way it looks. I bet it doesn't hold up well. I don't like it.
I love it. I'm excited to try it.
No. All right, here's a hot take. I fucking hate copper in a blade. Fuck out of here with that copper in a blade.
I love the contrast. I'm going to try it for sure. Yeah, so okay. Fuck you. No.
Yeah. No, hey.
Shit.
Maybe that'll be my sticking point to the end of this podcast is fuck copper and blades. It's not happening.
Fuck copper, yeah. No, I'm gonna try. I think it looks cool. But I'm gonna make one, and I'm gonna obviously beat the fuck out of it and see if my blade separates. If my blade separates, obviously I'm not gonna sell any of that shit.
Yeah. But now, would you're not going to consider to make it yourself, right? You would order the Gomai steel from a maker?
Why would I do that? I'm not going to order it, dude. I'm going to fucking make that shit.
Okay, so then if that's the case,
I already actually have a billet. I already have a billet welded up.
Oh, my God. What do you do? Yeah. You got all these secret little projects in the back? That's crazy. That's crazy.
Yeah, I work outside. Dude, I'm always testing stuff, trying new things, man. Just seeing what's out there. But
well, listen, tell me about the Hamon, because this is something I haven't done, and I know this is one of your favorite methods. So
I do enjoy it.
What does it do?
So this is another thing that goes back to Japanese technique and the samurai, the katana, and all that. And the Hamon is part of a process called differential quenching. And what differential quenching is cooling the part of the blade down a lot faster than another part. And the part of the blade that you're trying to cool down faster is obviously the edge, because that's how you get a blade hard, is cooling it down fast. Now, the old technique is using water, quenching it in water. I'm not going to do that. I'll do it. I'll do it in oil. But so with the differential quench process that they used, they would actually use clay on the spine of the blade, and then going down the blade a little bit, depending on how long the blade is. Say if you have the sword is 1.25 inches, they're probably going to go down, 3/4 of the way with that clay. And as they're dipping that into the water or the oil, whatever they're using to harden it, that clay is going to stay hot and keep that spine and the back part of that edge soft. Because during sword fighting, they would like that a little bit softer, because it would prevent the blade from actually breaking in half during heavy sword fights. Because the hardness is what makes it a little bit more brittle. The tempering process dumbs that down a little bit and makes it a little bit more flexible and stuff like that. But you push a blade far enough, it's going to break. And the Hamon, the differential quenching process was supposed to not prevent that fully, but slow that process down, especially when you really need that sword the most. You don't want it breaking in half.
Right.
I use it in my chef's knives just because it's cool for the main part. It looks really cool. Once you put an etch into it, you can see it's very similar to like a Sanmai look, where you could see the difference in the color afterwards. Which
That
I actually do
beautiful,
have one,
unique
but
line. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Whatever pattern you put on it, and you want to make the pattern as even as possible on both sides of the blade, or else it's not really going to quite work.
Mm.
But yeah, it leaves a beautiful little pattern on it after you put it in a ferric acid and then throw it in some coffee. But yeah, it's another thing that goes back to the Japanese.
Yeah. Okay. So the hamon is to protect the toughness of the blade, because
Basically, just to add a little softness behind
right,
to make it less brittle for
So
heavy chopping or sword fighting.
Right. The two terms that I learned first when I was making this is hardness and toughness. And hardness means edge retention, the ability to hold an edge, and toughness means the ability to, bend and get stress without breaking. Which all comes down to the quenching and tempering system. Now, these terms get thrown around like crazy. Oh, I quenched it, I tempered it. Why don't you explain to us what exactly the quench does and why you have to temper it afterwards? That way, as we're using these terms, they know the difference, because it goes hand in hand, but they are two totally different systems.
Yes, and so I'll go through my quenching process for like 1095.
Yeah.
So basically, first off, what the quenching process is, it's a rapid way of cooling the steel and turning it into, I believe, what is called, I didn't research this enough, or
I'm looking it up. I know the two terms you're looking for, so I'm looking it up.
Martensite is, I believe, what you're looking for. That's the finished product. So you're trying to basically, the quench process is basically changing the way the molecules inside of the metal are, basically. It's hard. It's
right from martensite to austenite, and
austenite.
the carbon is what is the catalyst, or the part that makes this happen, and it's how the carbon molecules lay into this steel that causes this change.
Mm-hmm. So it's going from, the inner workings are going from like a big, so if the molecules inside the knife were that size, you're basically turning them into smaller molecules. Right. And that's called the grain. The grain of the knife.
And it turns the steel into something that is much more resilient in terms of hardness. Again, hardness between toughness. So it gets very hard, and it can hold an edge very well. But because all of those grains are so small and tight together, it's brittle as fuck.
Extremely brittle. And that's where the temper comes in. Yep. And the tempering process it's a slow process. It's a couple hour, 2 hour cycles typically. And with the carbon steel, so after I quench my blade into the oil, and like I said, that's just a rapid cooling process for the steel to turn from that martensite to the austenite. And from there, it comes out. You got to be very careful with it now too. So I try to just lay it down on something flat, make sure it's flat. If it's not as flat as I want to, I clamp it between two pieces of aluminum or something flat and let it cool to room temperature that way. And that usually seems to work pretty well for me. And I've never had anything warp too badly though, so I don't know if that would work on a pretty badly warped blade. But right after that, as soon as it's room temperature, I don't like to let it sit at room temperature for too long. As I'm quenching, I already have my tempering oven warmed up, and it goes straight into the tempering oven for the first cycle at 2 hours. Sometimes if I'm too tired and it's like I just did one cycle, I'll leave it in there overnight and I'll start the second cycle in the morning. As long as I can get one cycle in,
yes,
and relieve some of that stress, in the blade, then
Yeah, I've heard stories of the times that a knife maker will quench their blade, and the next, and they're tired, so they quench it, they leave it on the table, and when they come in the next day, there's fractures and cracks in it,
yep,
because that quench puts that steel under a lot of stress and pressure, and all of the atoms moving and changing and everything. There's a lot of
yeah.
stress
You
in it,
just
and it.
change the inner structure of that steel.
Yeah. So it is important. And it's almost like if you have a really, really crazy workout, like the hardest workout of your life, and like if you just finish that workout and go to bed, you're going to wake up more sore than you've ever been in your life. So what the temper is almost like the sauna, where it's like, you just everything loosens up, everything gets ready, you little stretches. So, and that's what the steel needs. And that's what the temper does, which for the longest time, actually, the first few blades I made, I never tempered. I didn't know I had to because in
Oh
Fortune
shit.
Fire, they didn't show the temper
Yeah,
system.
oh yeah, dude. That's what I meant when I said, dude, they show you just enough to get you in trouble. Shit
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that, man. Yeah,
Yeah, and I
fuck, dude.
remember I
Ah, shit.
used I had a knife that I was using that I didn't temper, and I mean it was sharp as hell, but I used it as a screwdriver one time, and the blade just chipped right off when I used it. And I was like, "Well, it should be more sturdy than that," but it was as brittle as it can get. So yeah, the temper system's good. I also want to point in two things. One is if you accidentally leave your temper going for 3 hours or 4 hours, it is not the end of the world. Don't
Yeah, over
think that
tempering
you've
isn't a
ruined it.
thing.
Yeah, it's fine. I mean, did it lose a little hardness? Yes, but not enough for it to change a blade. You're never going to notice. Listen, unless you are using this blade to take on the world, there's no difference. You're going to cut the chicken the same. You're going to cut the venison the same. It's all fine. The second thing that I noticed too is I know you said something about warping. And as someone who has been quenching at wild temperatures, I've learned a lot with warping. And
Yeah.
one thing is if you pull a blade out and it is a little warped, one, don't be too afraid while it's still very hot to try to bend it back into shape. I have definitely saved
Hmm.
blades by just I put what I do is I put it on my anvil. I put my hammer on the half that needs to stay, and I use my tongs to just slowly kind of force it straight. I have definitely saved it. Obviously, if it's a crazy warp, don't do that, but I've saved it. And also, just last time that I did my bread knives last week, I made 3 bread knives. They're long bread knives. I have a little toaster oven. And 2 of the bread knives I was able to lay onto the shelf in the toaster oven. They did fine. The other one didn't fit. So my third bread knife, I put 2 quarter-inch pieces of steel and I laid it across them. Now my bread knives are pretty wide. I think they're like 11-inch, 12-inch blade. They're long. When I took it out of the first temper, the one that was suspended from tip to tip and the middle, it okay. So as you see my hands, piece here, it laid across it. I had a belly that formed. There was a warp that formed during the temper because
Hmm.
it heated up. The steel, I guess, got a little bit of loosey goosey, and it put a belly in this bread knife. It's not
I've been
significant.
able to straighten during a temper.
Yes.
After
Now you
I've
sandwich it
I've
between 2 pieces of
as
steel, right?
soon as after the temper, no. If so, after the quench, if I see a little bit wrong with it, I'll sandwich it between 2 pieces of steel.
Yeah.
If I pull it out and it's a very, very tiny bit, still, I go fix it in the temper now.
Yeah.
So then
Yeah.
I'll put it straight in the temper oven. I'll do one temper set, and as soon as it comes out, that one I grab it with my welding gloves. I look it down and I start working it, and keep
Mm.
kind of holding it that way and let it cool.
While it's still hot from
And
the temper, huh? Let me turn on my
from the
light. I just realized
temper,
how dark this is.
yeah, you're good.
Oh my goodness.
But yeah, man, I've been able. Hey,
Yeah. Okay, so that's good to know because when I had taken it out of the temper and I saw that belly, I was very sad because it already went through a temper system. So I'm going to try to grind it out because it's mild, but that was something I didn't know is during the temper you can still get that warp. And again, I suspended it like an asshole, and I allowed it to get that belly. But a learning lesson and something I need to pass on to other makers. Let it lay on something solid while you're tempering it.
Yeah, definitely do that, or even just make sure it's connected at a couple different points and not just two, one at the
Yeah.
end. And
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
to finish off like our common terms, let's talk about a little bit about the hardness, like you were talking about before,
Yeah.
and just to get into that, everything is based off of a hardness scale called Rockwell, and there's a Rockwell A, a B, and a C. Knives are based off of the C scale, and then most of your other steels, brass, steel, your mild steels that you see on a daily basis, those are all on the B scale, but those are still pretty hard metals, right? So that should kind of put it into perspective how much harder a knife is um, than your everyday steel. And people who think that you can just pick up any piece of steel and turn it into a knife, that's not true. So us knife makers, we use the Rockwell C scale, abbreviated HRC. Um, and basically anything, 55 and up is pretty good depending on the use.
Yeah.
Some of these super steels that they got going around nowadays, that I'm starting to get into, not starting to, but I've been testing out for quite a while now, is the Nitro V and the CPM. And yeah, I put those blades through hell. I hammered one of my blades into a piece of 5/8 steel rod. After that, I broke it in half and checked the grain structure on the inside. And man, those super steels get really really hard. It's nice, but it's at the same time there can be a pain to work with. But
Yeah. Pros and cons to the hardness scale for sure.
100%, yeah. And there's all different kinds of things that go into that too. Like how easy is it going to be for the consumer to sharpen it, and things like that. So those are all things we got to think about as knife makers too. Am I giving you something that you're going to be able to maintain yourself, or
Yeah. 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 Which I've had some people, bring me knives to be like, hey, Mike, can you sharpen this knife for me? And I'm used to sharpening my high carbon blades where, I mean, they get an edge on so easy. It's not
Yep.
hard. And then they give me something and I'm rubbing it on my, cheap stone that I have, and it's not really doing anything at all. And I don't, it makes me kind of look like I don't know what I'm doing and sharpening it. But I'm like, you don't understand. I'm not removing any material. Like this ain't changing. I'm not sharpening it at all. So
Yeah,
um,
I'm just cutting my stone apart.
yeah. I'm just I'm I'm ripping my stone apart. Yes.
Cheese grating my stone.
Yeah. It's sad too because you give them a knife that's not much sharper, and they're like, "Oh, okay, you don't know what you're doing." And it's like, no, I don't know how to handle this steel. I'm not I'm not equipped for this. I was ready for something lighter. And that I'm learning now that maybe I do get diamond plate stones and all this stuff. But that is
Yeah.
that is definitely something. Like people who buy the hardest of stainless steels, you need to be aware that that's not something you're going to be able to just maintain yourself. So
I mean, if you know what you're doing and you have good stones, or however you're sharpening, if you know what you're doing, yeah. Some people can. I know some people who do know quite a bit about the steels, which is cool, but don't really
yeah,
know about making knives and stuff. So
yeah. Yeah. But the pros and the cons is there are those super steels, like you said, that I mean, they will hold that edge for 2-3 years before you got to sharpen it. But when it's time to
mhm.
sharpen it, maybe bring it to a professional or bring it back to the maker to be like, hey, I'm not even going to fuck around with this. Because I'm sure you've seen it. Have you ever seen someone run their
I don't want
blades
to
through an
sharpen
electric
shit unless
an
it's brand
electric
new.
I don't fix shit. But like, I mean, you've seen those electric knife sharpeners and people run those knives through it, and it literally like, I mean, it's almost like it's chewing on the knife more than it is sharpening it. I don't know, man. It bothers
Yeah, I
me a
mean, it
little bit.
depends. I don't like the ones I don't like. I don't like those carbide. sharpeners where it's like the 2 carbide tips that you drag the blade through it. I fucking hate those.
Yeah.
If you ever buy one of my knives and I see you using that shit, I'm taking the fucking knife back. Give me that shit.
Dude, I have care knives. So when you purchase a knife from me, I send them in a little box with some tissue paper, and it comes with a little care knife. And I literally tell you, like, don't use an electric knife sharpener, please. Like, just a honing rod should take care of it. As long as you're not being wild with this knife, just every few months at your leisure, just a little honing rod, and that's fine.
Yeah.
But like
honing rod and a strop.
Yeah,
strops go far fucking way too. I think that's something I'm gonna probably look into too, is just to bring awareness to the strop. You know what I mean, dude? Fucking we need.
But most people don't have strops.
That's what I'm saying. I'm gonna bring them, dude. I'm gonna start making strops, dude. I'm gonna make a fucking paddle strop. It's got a little piece of wood, and then I'm gonna fucking glue a piece of leather to it, dude.
Yeah, you can bring that strop revolution up, man. That's what we need,
bro.
Because
awareness,
how many times,
dude.
like, you just rub it a few times, and because the most
dude, it's crazy what a little piece of fucking leather will do. People don't realize, you know, there's sometimes there's just a tiny little burr that's invisible to the eye on that blade that's slowing it down.
People don't know why a knife stops working perfectly, and typically for a nice quality steel like you or I make, it's just because the edge rolled a little bit, or a little, just a little burr happens, or so. It's something that it's just realigning the edge. You don't need to put a new edge on. It's just realign it. That's all it is. Because when you bring an edge, you're talking about the thinnest of thin. It is something, and that's what the burr is. The burr is a piece of steel so thin that it folds and bends, and you break that little piece off, and then you have an edge. Terminology is a burr. When you put an edge onto a knife, sometimes it comes so thin that it's a flexible little
every
sheet.
time.
You should have a burr. If you don't have a burr, it means maybe you don't have a sharp knife.
If you didn't create a burr when you were sharpening your knife, you didn't do it right.
Yeah. And then once you get that burr, you break it off, and then once it's broken off, everything just files into the thinnest but solid piece of steel you can have. But also, people need to understand that is the thinnest piece. So it will move, it will roll, it will do something. So that's what the strop is for. That's what the honing rod is for, is just to align it. It's just to get everything back in set. So that's what it is. More than sharpening, realign your edges and you'll be okay.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Sometimes it just takes a little love. You don't got to go crazy. I haven't really had to resharpen much of anything.
Yeah. Again, sharpening, no. Just strop it, hone it,
Yeah.
Tomatoes are always my sign of, like, how sharp are my knives.
You bring crushing these things or what?
Yeah, the second you see a tomato squeeze, it's like, okay, this isn't sharp enough. I need to slice through,
Yeah, potatoes too. Like, I want to, especially, if I'm trying to make fries or something, like, I want everything to fry up nice and evenly. So the only way to really do that is have a nice fucking sharp knife to cut those potatoes good, so.
Yeah.
I mean, you know what they say, dude? The most dangerous tool in the kitchen is a dull knife. So I like to make that shit fucking as sharp as I can, especially when I'm cutting some of those harder objects like a potato.
Yeah. I remember I was in my buddy's kitchen once, and he was making something, and he gave me his knife, and I was like, dude, this is the dullest fucking knife I've ever seen in my life. Like, what the fuck is this? And I remember I was just running it on my wrist.
Say anything.
I'm just running it on my wrist at him. I'm like, do you see this? I shouldn't be able to do this. What are you doing? What are you doing with this fucking knife? But also at the same time, I ain't gonna sharpen it.
No, I don't want to offer sharpening services to people, dude.
No. Especially with steels, I don't know. Like, you hand me a Target knife. I don't know what steel this is. I don't know what I'm supposed to do with it. I don't want to. No.
Nope, I don't want part of your knives. Yeah. Unless you're related or my girlfriend.
Yes. Well,
that's the thing. Your shit.
Yeah, sometimes you almost take it as a challenge.
I don't care if you bought it for me. I fucking want
it. Yeah. Actually, so that bread knife, the one knife I made this week, that bread knife, is not for the show and is a gift. So it's like I spent my 1 week working on a knife that I wasn't even going to make money off of. I wanted it a gift for my sister-in-law. She's been helping us out with the kids when we do our dates and this and that. And I wanted to surprise her because she's getting into sourdough and gardening and all this and that. And I was like, she needs a nice bread knife.
Shit. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's
sometimes you gotta eat it, man. And whatever. I mean, you'll get there.
Yeah. Listen, as we do this,
I do like that bread knife though, man. That thing's slick.
Thank you. And dude, okay, let's take a minute and talk about serrations on bread knives. I did it with my my wheel on my grinder. It went so smooth. It was so accurate. I measured.
How much did that cut down the time?
Dude, it went from a full hour to like maybe 15 minutes, and I was done.
Fuck yeah.
And like 15 minutes only because I wanted.
That's the only way you're gonna make money in the knife industry, bro. Efficiency. Learn how to be efficient.
Yeah, I'm not raising my prices, so I got to cut down my time, and that's what it is.
Yeah, and, man. We work for fucking basically minimum wage, man. We got to learn how to be efficient out here.
Yeah,
that's why
for right now, this is a passion
are high
more than a business. Yeah, high. Yeah, $140 for a knife, and suddenly, it's like, whoa. It's like, dude, it cost me $70 to make this, like just out of my pocket, without the 2 days of work or
and a lot of
the
fucking
quench
time.
oil, the propane, it takes a lot. So if you want that knife, just go to fucking Target, go buy your $10 knife, and come complain to me in 2 years.
Yeah, we're not making knives for the everyday consumer.
No, well, you know what? We are.
Well,
it's just you have to understand the value of it. The value.
True, you're right.
There.
You're right.
And some people don't see it, and that's
different.
Fine.
It's not your.
That's fine.
It's not your everyday run of the mill Walmart special. We're putting our blood, sweat, and tears into these things, and the cool thing about what we do is we touch every single knife. If we don't like it, it doesn't go out.
Yeah,
you're not getting that from these big companies who are just mass producing, shooting out knives. There's a little mistake, you got to return. You got to go through this process. We're not letting anything get past us. I mean, we're touching it start to finish. We're the first and last person to touch it until it goes to the consumer. So,
yeah. I mean, we're handcrafting this start to finish for you guys, and that's what you're getting. There's a soul to these knives. There's something in them that you can't get elsewhere, and it's very important to express that when you're buying this. And again, like I had said in an earlier episode, as I was told, it was like a tattoo, where it's like you're buying art, and it also happens to be a tool. But this is something that
it's a tool that's going to last forever if you take care of it, you treat it right, you sharpen it right, you don't do stupid stuff, throw it against rocks.
Yeah.
Don't go buying a custom knife and then trying to test it like they do in Forged in Fire, like that.
Dude, yeah. I slammed this against a whole bunch of deer bone, and it's like, yes, of course it did. Of course it did. You're supposed to take care of this. It's not like you're going to go buy a bed for a bunch of money and then just start jumping on it and throwing bowling balls on it like the commercials do. It's like,
yeah.
Listen, I get it. Yeah. It's supposed to be durable, but don't fuck it up.
Yeah, exactly. Don't go doing. You're not fucking.
I just watched, and I hope he's there.
A judge on Forged in Fire here. Let's all just chill on.
Yeah. I was bashing
we're getting
this
off topic
into my
a little
bit.
Yeah, I bought a skull.
Yeah. I went out of my way to make sure that I fucked up your knife. But no, hold on, wait. So there is a knife maker that we're gonna see at the knife show, God willing. His name is Red King Blade of USA. I believe it's Red King though. And he just released a video of testing knives. And he walked around his yard and he was just bashing it against stones on the ground, throwing it into pebbles and, throwing it into the air. And I mean, he really went crazy on it. And like, that just goes to show, yes, you can technically, these are durable blades. Like for him as a maker, yes, he could do that to test it. But like as an end user, don't fucking do that stuff. Don't do that.
Yeah.
Go watch the maker do it and then buy one that didn't have it happen to it, But I hope you meet him. I hope he's there. Red King Blades is a fucking great maker nearby. So,
Yep. I'm excited to meet Luke Delmeyer too, because I have a friend who actually took a class from him, made something from him too. So I heard he's a great guy. So I've peeked at his shit. He looks stuff looks really nice.
Guy in the world. Yeah.
Oh yeah, is that right?
Oh my God, a true gentleman. Absolutely, you're gonna love him. So no, that's the best
that's
part.
The community, man. That's what it seems like this community is, and that's kind of why I love this knife community, man. Like you think you're walking into it all scared, and I'm sure you really realized this last year really quickly at your first show. You know, like you're like, oh man, like all these guys are my competitors, my competitors, but like no, really, man, like they're actually there to help you. Like everybody's there to help, and like everybody wants to see you make something cool, man. Like,
yeah. I mean, no one's, you walk in there thinking everyone's going to tell you you're a piece of shit and your knives don't look good or they don't. Everybody is there celebrating the fact that at least someone else is doing it, because there's not a lot of knife makers. Who the fuck is making?
I mean, it's coming back a little bit, but it's still not. Yeah,
that's like saying hunting is coming back, where it's like, yes, maybe there's an influx, but compared to what the numbers should be, like you're not there. You're not there. So
yeah, you're right.
I don't know. It's beautiful though. Listen, man, we're at an hour and 20.
So let's.
What do we got to close this all off?
Let's close this off on a couple of common grinds that we talk about. You talk about my S grinds. You talk about some S grinds all the time, and you're starting to do these flat grinds now. So why don't you explain what that flat grind is and why you like them?
Okay. So all right. So from my understanding is I know 3 grinds. I know the flat grind, I know the hollow grind, and I know the convex grind. And I'll just say, so the flat grind is where the bevel itself is flat. It is just a flat plane going down to the edge. There is the hollow, which is a convex, which means you use a radiused wheel to get it in there, where you're actually kind of digging in, making a radiused bevel that allows it to get a lot thinner,
which is what you'll see on the straight razor. A straight razor is a hollow grind.
Yes,
they have that.
Yeah, so it's a great way to get a very sharp edge, but have a larger, thickness blade. And then there's a convex, which is more like an axe or something heavier, where it's actually an obtuse edge, where it kind of is radiused outwards, kind of rounded to the tip. And that gives the most sturdiness in order to, if you're going to be swinging it at something that you shouldn't be, you kind of want a convex. Convex? No. What did I just say? I don't know. I got to pee so bad. So those are the 3 edges. I personally like the flat because it's something I can do. And it just, in my mind, it's a nice, clean, sharp bevel. But I'm going to go take a piss, man. Go explain something. I'll be back in 2 seconds.
All right, brother. So to bounce off of those 3 grinds that he knows, one of the main grinds that you'll always see is called a compound grind. And we kind of touched on this a little bit earlier. And that's one of those knife grinds where you have that little flat where you see the plunge line and you have your primary bevel here, and then it goes to a flat, and then it goes to the spine in the back here. And that is your typical compound grind that you'll see on most knives these days. One of the grinds that we talk about a lot too, that I really like to do, are these S grinds that I just started doing pretty recently, and they actually have the purpose of food release. I was just kind of talking about another grind that you actually do know, the compound grind. We were kind of talking about it earlier. That's the one with the primary bevel and then the flat you were talking about. Exactly. That is
which I call the face. Again, we're making up that term here, the how to make a knife.
Exactly.
Face of a knife. Yeah.
But that particular grind is a very common grind called the compound grind. But like I was saying about the S grind, that is a a fairly new grind to
That
the
looks
knife
so good,
game.
man.
As far as I know, as far as my research goes, it's a fairly new grind to the knife game, and
Yes.
it's made for food release. When you're cutting those stickier foods, you're trying to thin slice potatoes, or for whatever you're making, you're trying to thin slice some tomatoes, but they're just sticking to the knife.
Onions.
That's to help, exactly, onions. That's to help
Yeah,
prevent
those are
that,
thick.
and it just fucking looks cool.
Yeah.
It brings eyes to the piece. People are like, oh wow, man, that's you see the definition of that line, and
Yeah.
just brings attention to the knife a little bit.
Can you actually hold that S grind back up? That thing looks so nice. Let me see that again. Oh my god, yeah, that's gorgeous, man. Oh my god. Just polished up like
Yeah,
that. That is great.
I'm excited to show this off. I got to finish
Yeah.
it up and do the handle and get that all glued up and polished up. It's been sitting here a while,
Oof.
but
I love
yeah,
it.
I'll be gluing that up probably this weekend while I'm doing all my hardening and that fun stuff. So I got a
Yeah.
busy weekend, but I'm excited for it, man. I'm real excited for this show and looking to get my stuff out there. I gotta remember to make cards actually for that show. That's the only thing I really need to do. Cards, and I would like stickers. If I can get some stickers, that's cool. If my hats are done by then, that's cool. But
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
I'm excited
Yeah.
for it, man.
Yeah, the stickers and the cards, that's easy enough. Amazon or,
Yeah.
Staples. That's where I got
Yeah.
my cards. I do my
But
cards at Staples. And I designed it
real
all
quick, one
myself,
more thing too.
and they messed it up.
Before you go into that, just explain.
Yep.
We talked about it a little bit before. Just explain that Scandi grind a little bit.
Okay, so the Scandi grind is actually it was something that I was unfamiliar with. I have a buddy who's into
Also called the
bushcraft.
Scandinavian grind.
Ooh, okay. Good to know.
Yeah.
I just knew it as Scandi. So ultimately, like you had said with the compound, where it's like you have the flat edge, you put the bevel, and then you put the apex edge. So there's the bevel, and then there's the actual edge. Now a
Yep.
Scandi grind is where the bevel goes right to the edge. There is no secondary angle. It's bevel to edge. And I don't really know the purpose of it. I think my understanding of it is it's easier to sharpen it, because you just rub it on that bevel, and then you just
Yep.
rub it on that bevel, and then you rub the other bevel, and it has an edge, and you don't have to worry about a secondary edge, and it's supposed to be more resilient. Um,
Mm,
I
I don't know
I
about
honestly,
resilient.
I do.
Because that's what
I
the
did
double
it.
that's what the uh so the primary bevel is the big flat, and then the secondary bevel, which is technically the edge of the blade,
Yeah,
um
or
which is
the
what you see on
apex. I've
most
heard it called
knives.
as apex, but
Yeah, there's, like you said, there's so many different
yeah, yeah.
terms, but that technically is I forget where I was going with that one.
How it's supposed to be more resilient. Where yeah, I believe where the
Yeah,
traditional.
the double bevel is supposed to be more resilient. That's what that was actually made for, to have a little bit more meat past that
Yeah,
edge.
yeah,
With that Scandinavian grind, you're just going s- straight to the edge, which
yeah.
is
Now
slightly
this
less resilient, but at the same time, like you said, I don't know the benefits, but
right. I
easier
didn't do
to
too much
sharpen
research
could
on it.
be.
It may be easier to sharpen, but I know a lot of the bushcraft guys are into this Scandi grind.
Yep.
It was harder to do. It was
Oh, I
harder
bet.
to
Yeah.
manage. Um, I didn't enjoy it, but it was cool as fuck. Like when I had it, it was so sharp. I took a 2x4 and I was just shredding this 2x4 apart with this thing. So, but I'm sure it would have worked exactly the same if I had a normal edge. So the Scandi grind, if you are listening to this and you have a reason why you like the Scandi grind, please
Yeah.
let
Let
us
us know in the
know
comments.
what is the Scandi grind for, because I did it, and like I said, it was a little bit more effort. I don't know how much
Yeah, you got to be
sharper
very
it got an
careful with
edge,
that. Yeah.
and like you had said, like you bring it down to where, and we keep on holding up knives. I'm sure most people are listening to Spotify, but so this is my
Yeah,
knife, and I
probably.
don't know if you could see, like my edge comes so close to an edge, but you could see it's not sharp. There's a little bit of thickness there, and that
Yeah.
allows the knife to have a body and then you put that edge on. This is the way I think all knives should be. The Scandi grind, I don't know, but it was fun to make and it was still sharp.
Fun to make. Yeah, we'll leave it at that. I have not made a Scandi grind, and I don't know if I plan on doing it, but I don't unless we get a ton of comments. People are like, "Yeah, the Scandi grind is shit. I fucking love Scandi grind knives." Then, well, looks like I'm gonna be doing Scandi grinds.
Yeah. I mean, listen, it's fun to try all the serrations. I'm gonna do an S grind eventually. I mean, you got to try it all. It's variety is the spice of life, and we're doing this because of our passion, and we want to learn it all. It's how you get well rounded, and to be able to tell a customer, no, because sometimes people are like, oh, this is what I want, and you want to be able to have the knowledge to say like, hey,
what do
don't
you
want a
use
Scandi
it for?
grind.
You know what I mean? Like, yeah, no, you kind of probably want this, man.
Yeah. No, for sure.
But I mean, so I think that pretty much does it for us, right? I mean, that's most of the stuff that we talk about. We got all the parts of a knife. We got, the terms we've been using, a bunch of other shit. Everybody knows I'm making a fucking katana now.
Yeah, and everyone knows I'm too busy to make more for this show. Whatever I got, hopefully I make some stuff, but we'll see what's up.
Yeah, you do what you can do. That's all.
Yeah. The other thing too to knives is, and we're not going to get into it. We're signing off in a few minutes, but it's like the profiles of like drop point, spear point, clip point, tanto, trailing, straight, Warncliffe, sheep dick, whatever the fuck they got. It's like there's so many things. And again, as a
knife styles. We'll have to do a whole fucking episode on knife styles.
Styles and
profiles. There we go, dude. Sounds like we got our episode next week.
Yeah. Listen, if you are trying to learn how to make a knife, don't worry about this stuff. Go back to the beginning of there's a handle. Is it hidden or full?
Yeah.
There's an edge. What kind of bevel do you put on it? And there's a point, and that's all you need to know.
Do it. Get a piece of steel.
Yeah.
And fucking make it look like whatever is in your head. And sharpen it.
Yeah,
bevel it, put an edge on it, and you'll learn a whole fucking lot more probably doing that than ever listening to us fucking dickheads.
Yeah. We're just here to tell you what not to do, and maybe get a little.
Yeah, we're here to tell you our failures. Try not to do what we did.
Yeah.
No, we've been learning for a while, and we'll be learning for a lot longer, man.
That's it.
I don't plan on stop trying. I'm always gonna be trying new things like that copper mine, man. I'll be doing that pretty soon, and things like that. I'm gonna always be trying cool shit that I think is cool.
Honestly, the moment I get comfortable with something is the moment I move on to something else that I'm not comfortable with. There's no reason to stay on something you're comfortable on. Keep learning.
Well, I mean, get comfortable there and maybe keep that as a product, especially if people like it. But yeah, definitely move on and keep experimenting and trying new things and trying whatever.
Don't sit at that level. Keep going.
Don't stay. Always keep moving. Always keep moving forward.
Yeah, dude, I'm excited to see your sword, man.
Yeah, man. I'll keep you updated. I'll keep you sending you pictures of that shit. I'm gonna actually, as soon as we get off here, I'll probably be making my steel order and getting all that. I kind of was waiting for the Tsuba to come so I could get all the measurements off of that little hole and make sure it's gonna fit.
That's a nice hole, man. That's a nice hole.
Yeah, bro, a nice hole. Slide that fucking hard piece of steel right down through there, bro.
Hell yeah, man. Listen,
fuck yeah, dude.
It was a good one. Education with how to make a knife. We're over here, asking questions and answering questions at the same time. That's what it's all about.
Yep.
Community.
We're learning. You're learning.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
Good time.
Listen, until next week, man. Take it easy. Good luck and stay sharp.
If you're out there listening, go make a fucking knife.
Yeah. Take it easy.